Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies and babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. How about that Joe Whitt Jr.?
You ready to run through a wall? Because I am.
Oh, man. I don't want to play his style because it is, at his point, not for me and not the life I want to live. But, man, I hope he finds the people he's looking for because, boy, did that kill it. Oh, man. Him uttering out loud, Sean Taylor's my favorite player. I just went, okay, here we go. Let's go.
Mentioned Sean Taylor. He mentioned other underrated greats here, like Ryan Clark and Marcus Washington, who I don't think anyone's mentioned Marcus's name in a long time, but was a Pro Bowler here.
Yes.
That was
really good guy.
Yes.
Really, a classically great guy. Everybody loved Marcus Washington.
High energy guy, too.
Yes.
And so, right away, I'm like, all right, like that one's for the millennials there. He just name dropped all of our favorite players, which is a rarity around here.
Yeah.
That was about as good as it gets for a press conference for a defensive guy.
He hit every high note, every single one of them. He said that what's going to be important here is the playing style. I'll get to Kliff Kingsbury in a little bit, who was not as loquacious about the whole thing.
I feel like we actually.
I think Kliff was just, I actually think he was being careful. Because he knew what the questions were going to be. It's going to be about Caleb Williams and a quarterback. He can't answer any of those questions. So I think he was kind of stuck in a different situation. Joe Whitt gets to walk in there and go, what do you want to know? We're looking for killers. Doc Walker right now is like screaming, thank you, God, outside somewhere, yelling for the canines. He's barking. He's yelling for the canines to join him. This guy hit every single high note you could possibly look for. He started with, what's going to be important here is the playing style, and went full Tomlin with, this ain't going to be for everybody, and if it's not for you, that's cool. You go live your life somewhere else. We don't have hostages here, but you're going to play the way we're going to play, and the other team's going to know about it, which is, thank you, God.
Right.
I'm waiting for one of those.
Run and hit was his word there.
Run and hit. Now, we're going to be a run and hit defense.
Yes.
We're going to play fast.
I think he threw violent in there one time, at least.
I think the other thing that I loved that he said, that my favorite quote actually was, and I love when coaches say this, if these players are struggling, that's our fault.
Right. Yes. Finally.
We're going to adapt to our players, and if they're struggling, that's our fault.
Yes.
Immediate accountability. I love it. If the defense isn't performing well, and it's because of, a certain player's, ability or whatever, they can change that.
Right.
But if collectively they're not playing well, that's your fault.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And he also
Ron did not do that.
He also said it was going to be collaborative with the players, too, that they would take their suggestions.
Thank
they
you.
would work with them. Kliff Kingsbury said the same thing, too. He said, we will adapt to the players that we have.
He actually, I'm going to get to him in a minute, because he actually was like, don't call this the air raid offense, which I loved. And the other one I loved, too, was when Joe Whitt said, go ahead, watch the Dallas defense and look on film and expect us to do that. You're going to be surprised.
Right.
We're going to build what we call a commander defense. Everyone expected us when we showed up to Dallas to do something. It took them a little bit to figure out we're not.
That's right.
And they're walking in here, and he said, this is why we brought all these different people in here. We're building a completely different defense. We don't want you to have a feeling about who we're going to be and what we're going to be. He name-checked a few people, Allen and Payne, obvious ones, and then was asked specifically about Emmanuel Forbes. And I thought, actually, that's the right person to ask about. He clearly is going to be a carryover. He was a first-round pick, and clearly he needs a redo. The rookie year didn't go very well. And when they hired Whitt as the defensive coordinator, and Dan Quinn and then Whitt specifically, I went, this is the guy who should benefit most from all of this. Go look at the track record here. Like, it goes back to Charles Woodson with this guy. Trayvon Diggs 2 years ago. Deron Bland last year. They are a turnover machine, and specifically at corner. And if, as he put it, if we got guys who can catch the ball, we're going to be all right here. We're going to figure out how to get turnovers. It can't be a coincidence that every single year the Dan Quinn defenses end up getting a ton of turnovers. So they're doing something right with that. And I looked at Forbes and I went, this is why he was drafted here. Here's the one thing I know about him. He's undersized. He can catch the ball.
Right.
And I wanted to hear what he would say about him. And he didn't go out of his way, but he just said, I liked him coming out. He does fit the profile. Here's a kid who's got a big attitude, in a good way. Feels like he belongs there and has the hands that they like. They want to put people like that in a position to make plays, and when the ball comes their way, they catch it.
Right.
A lot of corners were receivers that couldn't catch.
Correct.
This is a guy who can catch. And he's the first person I looked at and said, this defense, we're going to find out about everything about him this year. If he can't play in this defense, he's not a first-round pick or a starter. He should thrive in this. He should thrive in this because go look at how corners perform in this team's defense through the years and specifically the last couple of years. Granted, Dallas has a very unique front with, as he described, Micah Parsons, a unicorn.
Yep.
So they have certain, elements that make the quarterback make quicker decisions. But Bland broke a record for pick sixes this year. And last year, Trayvon Diggs had more interceptions than any Cowboy in the history of the franchise. Forbes we're going to find out who he is this year. He ought to be the happiest person on the roster that this happened in this way with this coaching staff, because if he can't thrive in this, he's not going to make it.
That's right. Yeah,
in the NFL.
Exactly right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
He also name checked Quan.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Which was of the rookie class, the guy who actually came on at
Correct.
the end of the year and was utilized in a lot of different ways in a lot of different positions. And I could already see it because the way they talk, he plays violently. And that's what they're going to like about him. They're going to like Defoe, too. Defoe plays violently. Mm-hmm. They're going to like that about him. Cam Curl does, too. Cam Curl's a smart player. We'll have to see what happens with him with his contract. But they're going to like Defoe. They're going to like Quan. Let's see what they can do with Forbes. They're going to have to get another corner in here because Fuller's contract is up. And I really just don't know what they're going to do there. And I do wonder about his health moving forward and whether it's viable to re-sign him or not. And they got to get some help on the edge because, listen, the reality is Dallas had Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. They have these great pass rushers. We traded ours away.
That's right.
So there's, that to do the things that he's talking about, they're going to have to get some help there. But they do have a lot of cap room. And when they said we're going to get the free agent list, I guarantee you they're going to circle people like Josh Allen from the Jaguars and people like that, or Hassan Reddick for that matter, and go, well, this is what we need. And a good chunk of money is probably going to get spent there because there's no chance on earth they can go get a rookie edge rusher in the second round or lower and assume that that's going to be a big impact player. So they're going to have to spend some money on an edge rusher. And if they get them that person to go with Duran and John, and Forbes does, light bulb goes off for him, and Quan is what they think it is, I think you're going to see that this defense is not what it was a year ago. The biggest problem I had with that season last year was the defense is not devoid of talent, and to post the stats that they did is just a franchise-level failure from the coaching staff on down to the players. I'm not absolving anybody, but that unit with that talent having the worst defense in the league and the worst defense that this franchise has produced in the Super Bowl era is unfathomable to me. And I'm hoping that we have a very different outcome just with the pieces that are coming back and whatever gets added to it, because I think there's enough talent that they should not be awful. And now we've got guys in here who are, boy, they're hitting the high notes for me. That press conference got me going. I was like, holy. It took him a second to warm up, and then once he got going, he hit every high note I was looking for.
The other part about all that, too, was it was about he made an emphasis on simplifying things to getting these guys to stop thinking so much and just freaking move.
Yes.
And Rivera tried to do that at the second half of the year, but it was kind of already too far gone.
And it was too late.
Yeah, it was too far gone.
They finally got a little bit creative. Like, they put Daron Payne on the end, and it actually worked for him and woke him up. I think variety helps these guys. If you put them in different positions and give them different opportunities to make plays and get them the right type of matchups. And Washington was, that defense last year, offense too, were so predictable. It was so predictable. Mm-hmm. Like, it was so obvious what they're doing. Here's Joe Whitt walking out there going, we need the quarterback to not see it right.
Yep, correct.
We want that extra second of them going, oh, crap.
Right.
Because he said, they're too good. He's right. Mm-hmm. Like, if you show Sam Howell, like, everything right in front of him, he'll slice you up. He did it early in the season. Like, the quarterbacks are too good. He's right. And it's not a coincidence that Dan Quinn and his defense and the others who worked on the staff in Dallas or Atlanta or Seattle, they're turnover machines every year. Why are they turnover machines? Because the quarterbacks are seeing ghosts with them.
That's right. Right.
It's what it is. They're seeing ghosts with them, and that's what I want here. And I loved we're building a Commanders defense. Don't just think we're going to take what we did in Dallas and bring it in. We're going to do something different. Everything about it. I'm Doc Walker now, screaming for the canines. Where are the canines?
Barking over there.
Barking. I'm a bark. Yes.
I will, once again, it was great. It was great. It was fantastic. But I will be cautiously optimistic once again, just because Eric Bieniemy nailed his press conference, and we all saw how that went. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just,
of course.
I'm staying medium over here. And
you have to.
Right, because I just
It's
can't.
easy to get excited in February
right.
when a football coach tells you how they're going to kill everybody.
Right,
And
correct, yes.
It's very easy to get all excited about
and
that.
as you just said, that was the worst defense in the league last year, so I don't think they're going to be the worst again, but I also don't know if they're going to be the best one either. So either way, though, I liked what he was talking about. I liked the reference to the old players. I also... he did the the kind of thing of just saying we want to play fast again, which I didn't see with this defense for the last couple of years, honestly. Like, they were good enough 2 years ago, but they were always hesitant. What's been the number one thing about Jamin Davis? It's that he thinks too much, but when he is not,
it for him too.
When he's not thinking too much, he's a missile. I mean, so let's hope like that becomes a part of this defense.
I have for 3 years defended Jamin to the point of they didn't miss on the athlete.
Yes.
Like, he's a ridiculous athlete. Behind Chase Young over the last 3 years, he's the best athlete on that side of the ball. Mm-hmm. They just have not gotten in a place for him where he can just play fast. And his career's on the line now because I can't imagine they're picking up the fifth-year option on him. So this is the final year of his contract, and we're going to find out what he is. What I do know is he has the size, speed, ability, and talent to do it at a very high level. And then it comes down to, can you be coached well enough to play at your best and make the impact that you're capable of? This isn't about talent. It's elite talent that he has. The question is whether they can unlock it with him. So for Forbes and Davis, this is an enormous year. Forbes has a few years left on a contract. So this isn't make or break for him, but I think you're going to find out a lot about him very quickly, whether last year was a coaching issue or last year he was not, putting in whatever the time necessary to, become an NFL player. Maybe he thought it was too easy. I don't know. Sure. Like, we'll find out. With Jamin Davis, this is year 4. You don't have any excuses. Yes, this will be all new, but they are preaching to you, we're going to simplify this thing for you, and we're going to put you in a position to make plays. He is clearly going to be on the field because he's the fastest defender out there, and he runs like a truck. And so he's going to get his opportunities.
Right.
And this is a big, big, big year for him. I also like this one, and I do think we have to make shirts of this. It says, feed the studs. Because, but I loved this line where he said, you're going to earn your right here to be a stud. We're going to put you in a position to make the plays, to be the guy, but you got to earn it from us first. And if you prove to us you're one of those guys, we'll go feed you. So I love that. And the fact that he name-checked Quan told me immediately they think he's one of those guys.
Yep, right.
And they're going to figure out, and because he is kind of Swiss Army knifey a little bit, they are going to figure out a way to hopefully profile him. So he sounds like he's someone that they like a lot. That's good. Forbes will have to see, but he's a corner. You're not going to be able to move him like this. I don't know who else he feels that way about. And there's only so much you can do with Deron and John. I mean, they're not built like Micah Parsons. You can't move them around the line or stand them up or do all that kind of stuff. But you can, as we saw with Deron, what Ron did with him at the end of the year, you can put him in a position to make more plays if you get the right matchups and kind of fool the defense with where he's going to line up. Who are going to be the studs, I don't know.
Right.
We might be drafting somebody very high in the second round. It's probably a defensive player, either linebacker, rush end, maybe a corner, maybe a safety, depending on Cam Curl, that maybe they kind of look at as the potential stud. But him name-checking Quan said to me, they're going to try to figure out a way to use him to have him make plays. And I did like this. Earn your right with us to be that, and we promise we're going to put you in the position to be that, but you got to show us you can do it.
I thought it was interesting. He went through all that, name-checked Quan, but did not mention Cam Curl. And I don't know to not read into that.
I'm trying not to read into too much anything. When you name-check somebody, though, it's immediate. You go, okay.
Yeah, and to that, it was almost like it wasn't a shot, but it was almost like, well, you guys know what you're doing with that guy. Do you not know what you're doing with number 31?
I don't think they do. I mean, his contract's up.
No, of course.
This comes down, if this was last year, I have a funny feeling you would just be like, well, we got Cam Curl here because he's on the last year of his contract, but because he's not, that one's complicated. I don't know what the number is he's looking for. I have a feeling he's going to test free agency because if he is saying the things on social media privately to the team, they're probably going to tell him to test the market and get back to us. What I think is going to happen.
Now that the agents know who to call.
Yeah. Right. Now that we have someone to call, right. All right, let me take a quick break, and we'll get into what Kliff Kingsbury said next. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. It's a very good first choice for Throwback Thursday from 1977. This is the Steve Miller Band's Fly Like an Eagle off of the famous album cover with the blue horse on it. We chose 1977 today. because of what Deni Avdija did last night in the Wizards' loss to the Mavericks, where he's the first player to score 43-plus points and have 14-plus rebounds in the uniform since the Big E, Elvin Hayes, did it in 1977. He's also the youngest player to have 40-plus in 11 years. John Wall was the last to do that as well. So congratulations to my man, Deni, who I would like to apologize. I got to tell you, like,
You're doing that. I wasn't familiar with your game.
There were a couple of years there where I went, I think he's a pretty good defensive player, and, I think he'll be a role player, but I don't think he'll ever be a good offensive player, and clearly things have changed. In the last couple of months, really, and then obviously last night was just outstanding. So
it's coming more and more apparent. They just were not responding to Wes Unseld. I read it. I read it yesterday at the end of the show about how they've kept all these games close, including
They're
last
all
night,
close.
by the way.
Kuzma didn't even play last night.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And it's
they were up 10 in the fourth quarter.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. So it's just becoming more and more apparent how bad that situation was.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
No one's going to talk about it, though.
That's me again.
No one's going to talk about it, though.
Actually, it wasn't. All right.
Did you want that piece of trivia, by the way, now, or you want to do it later?
No, we're going to do it later because I want to
cool.
get into Kliff Kingsbury here for a minute. So his press conference wasn't as run through the wall-ish as Joe Whitt Jr.'s was.
Dude's got a radio voice, though.
He does. He's got quite the voice. Very good-looking man. He's got a lot going for him right now. I'm sure he's going to buy some kind of palatial estate overlooking the Potomac River that's going to be gorgeous. Architectural Digest, I'm sure.
Need to see if he's still with his girlfriend, fiance, or whatever.
Got to hook him up with my wife, get some interior design going on in that place, whatever he buys. Whatever beautiful modern estate he buys that overlooks the Potomac River.
I was going to say, I heard there's a mansion for sale. Overlooking the Potomac River.
By Mount Vernon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That some trees were removed.
Well, that's a different house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's
They
different
were
house.
two different houses.
Different house.
You are correct.
All right, let's see. Kliff Kingsbury, a little more close to the vest. Yes, good radio voice. Probably not going in the media anytime soon. Got a new deal here. He's ready to go. He didn't say a lot, but there were a couple of things that I think are worth pointing out. One, he called Caleb Williams a good kid, liked working with him, but obviously he has to be very careful about what he says. We have the second overall pick. Everybody is connecting a lot of dots. It's not hard to do so. I'm sure he anticipated the questions today. He just can't really talk about it. And I don't think he wanted to be overly effusive. He clearly wasn't going to be, he wasn't going to say anything bad about him. And so we kind of, we all want to just feel everything out. And so the questions were asked, but he didn't really give much up on that, other than to just say he liked him.
Yes, exactly.
I did like the best answer he gave was what kind of quarterback you want, and he said the Chiefs quarterback, which I thought was an outstanding answer at the moment. Can you find that guy? And then he did one of the two things that I think really stood out to me. One was he also said, I'm going to adapt to my personnel, which I always want to hear from the coaches, which I don't think happened with Bieniemy at all.
Right, you're right.
At all last year. And I like to hear that just in general. It's your job to get the most out of your players, whatever hand you're dealt. You can't make them all fit into this one thing that you want to do. So I liked hearing that from him. And the other thing that he said, which was interesting, he goes, don't characterize what offense I'm going to run here.
Yep. Right.
He's like, I know you're calling it the air raid. And then he goes, that's Mike Leach's. I got it from him at Texas Tech. I worked under that, but that's not necessarily what I run here. So back off the lawn a little bit and don't tell me who I am. So we now have the defensive coordinator saying, don't watch Dallas and think we're just bringing that here. We're building a Commanders defense. And we got Kliff Kingsbury going, I'm going to adapt to my personnel and build out an offense. And we brought in people from other places to help me build out that offense. And it may or may not be the air raid, but chill out with telling me what we're running here. So I like this. We're all in the dark about what's going on here. I like that.
But there were two consistencies that he and Joe Whitt Jr. did mention, and that is that they were going to adapt their schemes to the players that are here. Good. Finally. Like, there's no reason to square peg round hole this. Like, it was probably the most frustrating part about the last 4 years is that it was very much my way or the highway. I think Scott Turner actually was a little more collaborative. At the
Way
end,
more.
At the end, it was a little...
They didn't like what he was calling.
Yes.
That's different.
It came down to literal play calling.
And honestly, the quarterback play was lackluster at best. And in Scott's defense, that wasn't his fault.
That's right.
He didn't want Carson Wentz.
Right.
Like he didn't. He'll tell you that. He's one of the people. He didn't want Carson Wentz, but that wasn't his choice. This is what he was handed. With Heineke, I think everybody knew what the score was. Everybody likes him. He's a gamer, but they knew what the limitations were, and it wasn't going to be high level. So on that front, like with Scott, like I didn't like how leaky he was to some of the national media. That one bothered me.
Sure.
And I also I think his offense was lackluster at best at times, especially in the red zone. I thought that he really messed up a lot. But that said, he didn't make those quarterback calls. He was handed that. So I thought he did whatever he could with that. Bieniemy was a different story. Bieniemy was really, I'm going to install my way or the highway. And I remember my training camp, because I didn't mind it in the spring. I'm like, I think this is necessary. And then we got to the summer, and I'm like, is he ever going to include somebody in a meeting? Because it doesn't sound like he does.
Right.
And it doesn't even sound like he includes his coaches in the meeting. He just tells them what they're going to do, which is why I think this went so haywire last year, was everybody in the room, no one was being listened to.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
And it's not that he's a bad coach or that this team didn't need it on some level. Like, they needed more accountability and they needed more structure and they needed to be pushed a little bit harder. But at some point, you are working with people. So it was nice to hear both of these coordinators and Kingsbury say it as well. We're going to be collaborative. And I mean, that's kind of part of this.
And I also think, too, all that did was reassure, because look at what the two team captains last year, what happened to both of them. You had Terry McLaurin basically saying after week 3, we need to figure out who we are. Yeah. And then you had John Allen, who, like
they
I
lost
said,
Terry. I went, oh, God.
Yeah.
Like,
and then
that's a hard guy to lose.
With John Allen, I always say to you, that guy's good for popping off once a year, and that's completely fine. But when he popped off for the 3rd time and then says, I'm thinking about being traded, it's like, oh, God.
Well,
like,
the first,
we haven't lost John. We've made him go crazy.
But the first pop off, too, he had an outfit for that, which was really like he had brought an outfit to pop off.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, no. He was like in character. He showed up as a character.
Correct. And now, and I think like you've been around John long enough, though. If he doesn't get pumped after hearing that guy, like, and reinvigorated a little bit,
I hope so.
Then I don't know what to tell him. But yeah, I'm just saying the two guys that we trusted more than the coaching staff were like, I don't know about this whole staff, Chief. And I think we're finally back to what players want, and that's a little more collaborative effort.
So there were two things he didn't really answer, which is, what do you think of the quarterback situation? He kind of can't answer that.
Yep.
I think we all know what the score is, that in all likelihood they are selecting one, whether it's with the second pick or a move up or down, whatever. But in all likelihood, they're either taking somebody at 2 or they're moving up to 1. Like, I think we all probably get that. I'm not open to other ideas, but I think that's what we all think is going to happen. Yeah. So he kind of can't answer that. He kind of couldn't talk about Caleb. All right, so I get all that one. Then the other one was, we heard you were going to the Raiders.
Right.
And then you didn't. And then Magic Johnson apparently called you and changed your mind and helped you come here. At least that's how the story goes. And he would not answer that question and just basically said, I'm not talking about the specifics. But Antonio Pierce did, and went on with the aforementioned best friend of Joe Whitt, Ryan Clark, on the Pivot podcast and talked about what happened with Kingsbury.
You get to hire people and you got to interview people. This has been a very interesting hiring cycle, for sure. And at one point, I was like, oh, okay, the Raiders got Kliff Kingsbury. That is gonna be their offensive coordinator. Then I go to sleep, and I wake up, and I'm like, well, they ain't got Kliff no more. How does news just break before certain conversations are had? Or how does that whole process work? For you, it has to be difficult as well, because you are working to build the staff. You're having to ask, can you speak to certain coaches? But you feel like you've got one piece, and now all of a sudden that piece goes away.
Yeah, well, National Football League, NFL, not for long. So you're right. I thought we had a guy, but not for long. Hold on. So you put pen to paper, man. That's the one thing I learned. No different than that's in free agency, right?
Gotcha.
Teams are recruiting you, things are going on. Listen, Mac Johnson pretty good. I guess he can still dish it out a little bit. If I'm losing the Magic, I'm okay with that, right? And then at the end of the day, listen, man, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. That's fine.
Okay. So he didn't reveal too much, other than to admit Magic Johnson was actually a big part of it, which is what the story goes.
Yeah, I think it's also funny, too, he just completely conceded. Like, he wasn't even mad about it. He's like, it's magic.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do about it?
Well, also, and this is why you really want to have the Hard Knocks show. Start filming stuff now.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't believe what's actually going on right now.
Right, exactly.
Like, I'd love to actually know what Caleb Williams is actually thinking right now.
Of course.
I think we all want to know what that is. What the Bears are actually thinking, what Caleb Williams is actually thinking. You don't have to air it till next year. That's
true.
fine.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But it would be amazing.
No,
that quarterback series was pretty good. Got pretty behind the scenes. Of course, the NFL is going to be careful. What's going on right now in these situations, like how did Kingsbury end up here? What's Caleb Williams actually really think? What's Jaden Daniels actually really thinking right now? What's Drake May's people thinking right now when they're being perceived as the number 3 quarterback when they're probably trying to sell their guys the best quarterback? Like, what are they all really thinking? I'd like to see that show.
I know coaches don't want to hear this, but Hard Knocks should actually really just be a year-round thing now.
Of course it should. The offseason is the best part of the whole thing. It'd be the most intriguing part of the whole thing.
You can go dead in July.
when you want to have the best one ever. Do the NBA one.
Oh my God, that'd be incredible.
Though, and just call it the Woj bomb.
Yeah, right.
And it's every week telling you exactly what all of these players are thinking in real time as they maneuver around. You'd probably be shocked at how many deals almost happen with these stars going to different places. Right. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram and Callow, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. This is a good song for a presidential year. This is what Bill Clinton was using back in the early 1990s when he wooed America's ladies and the electorate by playing the saxophone, becoming very cool, and then we found out that old Billy Bill has got some proclivities.
That doesn't stop.
Yeah, it does not. That song came out in 1977, Throwback Thursday, to honor something that has not happened by any player in a Wizards Bullets uniform since Elvin Hayes did it back in 1977. Deni Avdija became the first player to wear the uniform to have a 43-plus point, 14-plus rebound night since Elvin Hayes did it. He's also the youngest Wizards player to have 40-plus in a game since John Wall did it 11 years ago. What a night for him. Here was his quote after it was a loss. That they
Still.
lost to the Pelicans. But still, I mean, we're looking for some silver linings here. It's going to be a very long year, and any development is a good sign for this team. And him turning into someone who's not just a defensive player, which I think we all agree is kind of part of his DNA, but actually being someone, I don't think that this is going to be typical for him, but like someone who's capable of this, it's a really good sign for them. He said this. It's a little emotional. I never thought that coming into this league, seeing all those numbers, those big players scoring those points, that I'd be able to be that hot. All the hard work, the times I was down or I didn't have good games, I was down on myself a lot of times, but I stuck with it. I kept working hard. I kept being patient. I went through a lot, and for me, it's only the start. I feel like I'm still getting better, but honestly, hard work and patience do pay off. You know, not unlike what's going on with Bilal, he was very young when he was drafted. He was a teenager when he was drafted here. He came from an international league, so it wasn't in college basketball. It wasn't in AAU. It wasn't with familiarity with all these players. And in, the first couple of years when I watched him play, I'm like, I actually think this guy could develop into a very good defensive player, but I didn't see this coming either. So I don't know if this is Brian Keefe, the new coach, or the development system that's happening, in the building a little bit under Winger and company, but this is a very, very, very good sign. Forget just having a night like this, but hearing him say all this, that like basically transitioning to this was extremely hard. I could have gotten really down on myself, but it's coming together for me, and it culminates with a night like that. It's awesome.
It's also I think the 5th game in a row he scored over 20 points.
Yeah, he's really come on.
He's doing that. And here's what I said to you, the most frustrating part about the Wizards lately when they've been losing, and last year they had Brad, so whatever, but even in these losing years, somebody picks it up and gets the points every night. I think that was the most disappointing thing about with Poole, because it was like, dude, they're going to let you do whatever you want. Score 30 a night.
How are you not scoring? Right. How are you not among the league leaders in scoring?
Right, because somebody has to score.
Yeah, well, the same record, but you could have 30 points a game.
Right, and so that was like, you always have this in losing years when you don't have the superstar. Who's just going to be the guy to actually be your scorer every night? And the fact that Deni seems to have just taken this on now and said, if you're not going to score, I'll go ahead and do it now instead. I mean, it's been really fun. And just, it's a good reminder, by the way, because of you saying that he came into the league really young. He's only 23. Like,
he's 23.
It feels like he's like 26, 27. He's been here so long. So, yeah.
Here's Keefe's quote about him. He said this at the shoot-around. So this was actually before the game. Okay, this is before the game. He said this. He's getting more opportunities to handle the ball. I've liked that about him. Kind of this. We're seeing this around the league a little bit. James Harden with the ball in his hands has kind of become a different, more re-energized player, different state of his career, obviously. I think they were probably doing it out there partially just to kind of get him engaged again, because he can score 40 points all the time. This is new for Deni, obviously. I'm not trying to compare the two. But we're seeing this where not the typical point guard is handling the ball a little bit more. He said this. He's getting more opportunities to handle the ball, and we're constantly asking him to guard the best players in different positions, and we have to play a little smaller at times, so he's getting a chance to handle even more. But we're putting him in positions to attack the rim and make plays for himself and his teammates. And on that, Avdija basically said that all of this defensive stuff that they're asking him to do is keeping him so engaged that that's why it's turning on the other side of the court. He said, a lot of my offense is coming from me competing on defense and making stops and getting those rebounds. That's how I get in the game, and it's my bread and butter. It's always going to be there regardless of the offense, and I feel like that's what gets me going in a lot of games. Getting to the defense, knowing the personnel, being there for my teammates, making big plays for the team, and being able to compete. We've been waiting for one of these guys in how long have we talked about how bad the defense is on this roster?
Right, exactly.
And, I don't know where this is going to go, but in a very, very short period of time, I know they keep losing, but they're not losing the way that they were.
Yep.
They were embarrassing the first half of the season. Like, that was embarrassingly terrible bad. I know they didn't have a good team, and I knew they weren't going to make the playoffs, and I assumed they'd have a bad record, but they're getting beat by teams by 40.
Yep.
Like, it was a joke. Like, it was a complete joke. And now they're not a joke anymore. They could have won last night. Mm-hmm. They could have beat the Mavericks. They blew a big lead. They could have won against them. Kuzma didn't even play last night. Avdija picked up the pace. Their players are playing better. Avdija keeps doing this. We're going to start having different conversations about him. I mean, 40 plus probably going to be rare, but we're going to have, if he's going to be averaging 20 a game, we're going to have very different conversations about what he means for this build moving forward. And this coach, in a very short period of time, has proven a lot. And I don't know what it means for his future, but it screams he should have been the coach at the beginning of the season, number one, considering the familiarity he had with Winger and Dawkins, and obviously gets this team to play differently. There was one other quote from last night where Corey Kispert basically said that the coach is demanding that everybody play to a certain standard. Yep. And because they're playing to this standard, now and they were down 20 last night and came back, at least they're playing to the standard. And they're playing a better team on most nights, including that's a playoff team that they played last night. And they got nothing. With their front court, they got nothing for someone like Zion. Nothing. So they're helpless in a situation when they take on a front court player like that. But here's Kispert saying, this guy's making us play harder. We're playing better. We're playing smarter. And now some of these other players' games are getting better almost overnight.
Correct. Yep.
So this reads a lot like part of the deal for Winger was you had to give Wes a second chance. It makes absolutely no sense that they extended him, but that's Ted's money to spend.
Yeah.
And by the middle of the year, when it was so utterly embarrassing what was happening, they had to make a change. And now I'm watching this going, this guy should have been the coach the whole time.
Well, I think what a part of this, too, was Wes bought into the whole thing of like, oh, we're just going to let Poole do whatever he wants. Like, remember that was the status quo in training camp? It was like, oh, well, Poole's going to...
He said that, too.
Right.
He outwardly said, he goes, I got the biggest green light you could ever see. And then we're showing pictures of him in the huddle. He's paying no attention to anybody. He's like, this is my team.
And so this is, I think, the difference between the old regime and Winger and company is Winger's going, no, we're going to draw the line in the sand again. We're not going to let this go any more than it is. Like, we're going to move West to the front office. Poole, you need to start paying attention in class, essentially. And then you also have, I think this is probably the more underrated part, is you have guys like Kispert, Bilal, Avdija, like Tyus Jones even too, that are like professionals that want Kuzma, yeah, of course, that want to be good, that want to be better, that want to be professional, where they're like, you brought in this joker and he doesn't even really want to even run the play you're calling.
There's no chance that the plan was to acquire him.
Right.
It just, when they got CP3 and they knew they were going to flip him, I think they were shocked that they got him in return. And because of it, it was too good of a deal to pass up. Whether he's here or not, it's too good of a deal to pass up. Now, what we need most from him is to be a professional again and look like someone who can be a volume scorer so we can move him.
Yep.
His name didn't even come up at the deadline because he played so ridiculously the first half of the season. No contender was like, what are we going to bring that in here for?
Right.
He needs to have the heart-to-heart where you need to get on board. You don't have to be here forever. We will move you, but we can't move you unless you're playing within the context of the scheme and what we're doing, and then we'll give you opportunity. Look at Avdija. We'll give you opportunities to score. We know you're talented. But if you're going to just run around and do whatever you want, you are not even valuable to anybody else.
That's right.
All right, take a quick break. Ray watches the show. He's at 6:30 at Sports Capital. These guys talking again or no? Are they still in their their divorce?
No, it's still sore for me.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Hall & Oates will not get along. They have like restraining orders against one another. They're not married.
No, it's bad, man.
It's bad.
I'm glad I saw them a couple times live.
Yeah.
They're not getting back together.
Rich Girl came out in 1977, which we chose for Throwback Thursday to honor what Deni Avdija did last night for the Wizards in a loss to the Pelicans. He became the first player to wear the uniform to score 43-plus points and have 14-plus rebounds since Elvin Hayes did it back in 1977. He also happens to be the first 40-plus point scorer at this age or younger since John Wall, 2013, to do it. And now, you want to play trivia time with me on this?
So this is per Chase Hughes. The last 5 Wizards or Bullets to score 40-plus at 23 or younger.
Okay, so it goes by age here, and we already know
Right.
2 of them, Avdija and Wall.
Yes.
Who are the other 3?
Can you name the other 3?
23 or younger?
Yep. And I will say you don't have to go.
I don't think Gilbert's one of them because I don't think he got here at 23. Is that right? Oh, so I have to guess Gilbert then?
I don't know. Do you?
Is Gilbert one of them?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So wow, Gilbert got here at 23.
Which is mind blowing. Yeah, because he left after his rookie contract. So yeah, that makes sense. It must have been his first year here, or his
Must
second
have
year.
been because I was like, because he played a couple years in Golden State. That's why I'm like, I
remember
couldn't
when-
remember how old he was.
That's always the joke with Gilbert is he made fun of Richard Jefferson because a second round pick gets to leave a year earlier. So he was making fun of Richard Jefferson the following year, saying, "I got all the money, player. Where are you at?" Because he was still on his rookie deal.
So before 23, huh?
I would say don't go back too far here either. I would say like 90s.
There's 2 left.
Yeah, there's 2 left here.
90s?
Yeah. Well, like one of them is like that's as far back as you're gonna go here.
Chris Webber?
Was one of them. Yes,
Okay.
and there's someone in between there.
Someone in between Gilbert and Webber doing it? Rip Hamilton.
Richard Hamilton.
Richard Hamilton.
Yes.
Rip Hamilton.
Yes.
I got this right.
There you go. Bang on.
Dagger! Dagger! I got them all without a wrong. Oh, man. Ted, you must love me today. I got that. That is incredible. Drew Gooden couldn't get that right, baby. I got that right.
I wish I had one that went further back because I'm sure there are more, but that was just the last 5 according to Chase.
I'm not going to kill you over not knowing that Richard Hamilton is Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, no, I forgot. I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't put
man.
that together.
Boo.
Sorry.
Boo.
I only started paying attention when Gilbert got here.
Okay. Wow. Buckhants is so proud of me right now that I got that right. Phil's giving me a golf clap for getting it all 3 guesses. But you did give me a time frame, though. So
I
that
did,
was,
yeah.
that was
Because I didn't want you going all the way back because you might have gotten it right, actually, but it wouldn't have been the last 5 is what the difference
Chris
is. there.
Webber must have been around 22, 23, too, because he also was, same thing, he was in Golden State and came here.
Right.
And he had to have been around 22, 23 when he came here, and then we blew it with him. That's one of those all-time can't believe that one and Rasheed Wallace.
Yes.
Boy, did we blow it with them.
Uh-huh.
We traded Rasheed Wallace for an older Rod Strickland.
Yes. Right.
We traded Chris Webber for Mitch Richmond, who, great player, Hall of Fame caliber, was way older and a lot smaller.
Yes, correct. They did trade Kwame Brown for Caron Butler, though.
They did do
That's
that.
a pretty good one. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to go with the bad ones. Got to mention 1 or 2 of the good ones.
Listen, the Rush trade should have been an all-time great.
Should have been, yes.
Should have been
Right.
an all-time great trade.
That's right.
Okay.
Some Bears news here, by the way. They've released Pro Bowl guard Cody Whitehair, and they've also released safety Eddie Jackson. So the Bears starting to make a couple.
Okay.
Of moves to
Eddie
clear some-
Jackson's older now.
Yeah.
He's been around the block, and we got some young safeties here. So I'm going to go with that's not a name I'd add to my list, but any offensive lineman is of
Correct,
interest to me.
yes.
Any and all offensive linemen are completely of interest to me.
We are interested in your services.
I think at some point actually, we should probably do this next week. I really should go through the roster and tell you where the free agents are, and then we should talk about what's out there because that's what's coming next here. This is where, now that we're done with the coaching staff, which we'll go through in a minute because they announced it today, who's on the clock is Adam Peters and Lance Newmark in that group now, and Martin Mayhew and all that. They got to get to who are we retaining, who are we extending offers to retain, because we have a lot of free agents on this team, and then what are we looking at in free agency before we get around to the draft.
Right.
The good news is, sitting at number 2 and considering Hal's in year 3 of a rookie contract that pays him no money, we have a backup quarterback at worst.
Yep. Right.
So that part's good. We can stay away from that, I think. Like,
sure.
I'm not in the business of trying to get Cousins here or Baker. I mean, like,
No. I
Wait,
saw
too
someone
much money.
once again posting that Cousins was like the favorite to come here from some
Yeah.
betting site, and it's like, stop it. It's
no,
not happening.
that's not happening. And the Geno Smith news, say if you didn't see this, Geno Smith had what was about $12 million of the money on his contract guaranteed. They had to pick it up this week, and they did. That's the only part I understand that is guaranteed.
Right.
But his total cap hit is around 30. So he's not getting paid. Like, it'd be obvious if he's like, that's all he's getting paid, but he's not. He's getting paid around 30. There's still a possibility he could get moved. They're just controlling the asset now, is what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're not going to just release him. Like, why would you do that? So that's what happened there.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Commander's coaching staff is official and out. That happened today, too. And the coordinators obviously both spoke. You heard that earlier today here on ESPN 630. Dan Quinn's the head coach. The coaching chief of staff, which is kind of a new thing that's developed in recent years, her name is Sarah Hogan. The interesting part about this, I didn't realize this happened, but someone tweeted this, and I thank them for doing so. It was somebody in Atlanta, because she just got announced as this chief of staff. And apparently at Raheem Morris's introductory press conference in Atlanta, he went on and on about how it's a big deal that he's working with her.
Oh.
And that she's like a big part of like what they're trying to build in Atlanta. So we poached another person.
That's funny.
So I thought it was funny. Yeah, I thought it was really funny. So the chief of staff was like, not unlike Kingsbury.
Yeah.
We're like swooping in and grabbing people.
Who's a lesser known celebrity in the ownership group that's not Magic Johnson? Like, did they have like
Mark Ein?
Yeah, like Mark Ein call her instead of Magic, or did Magic call her?
Mark
Ein
Ein got Venus Williams to call up Sarah Hogan to get her to come here.
Right.
Let's see. The player development coach is a guy by the name of Pete Onegian. I don't know him, so I don't know anything about him. Kliff Kingsbury is your offensive coordinator. David Blow goes from being a quarterback immediately into coaching, and actually he was brought up today by Kingsbury in his press conference saying he's one of the smartest quarterbacks he's ever worked with and thinks that he'll move very quickly up the coaching ranks. He's only 28.
Yep.
So he's going to be the assistant quarterbacks coach here. The
was-
guy who's going to work directly with them is Tavita Pritchard and Brian Johnson, obviously.
Right.
But this is somebody who's young in the room, and they hope to develop.
He went viral a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember the clip.
With his wife.
His wife, yeah. His
Yes.
wife was an Olympic sprinter.
In Hard Knocks, yes.
Yeah.
In Hard Knocks, because all the team was watching his wife in the Olympics.
Yeah,
right?
he was going
because it was in the middle of the night, right?
Yep, exactly.
Or middle of the night there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it was pretty good.
Let's see. Andre Coleman is an offensive assistant. Bobby Engram is one of the holdovers. He was the wide receivers coach last year, and I actually saw Jahan Dotson praise that they did that, bringing him back. He was well liked. Bobby Johnson is the offensive line coach. He's the one that's getting hit over the head, at least from Commanders Twitter circles, because the outcome with the Giants offensive line the last couple of years hasn't been very good, to which I would just say to everybody, go look how many games Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas played last year, and you explain to me how a offensive line does well with all the quarterback injuries they had and without both of their tackles.
He also
Give the guy a break here for a second. You can't lose your whole offensive line and expect to not give up sacks or whatever it is.
Kingsbury also went out of his way to say he ran really good run schemes in Buffalo. Didn't kind of glossed over the Giant stuff and said he was a big fan of what he did in Buffalo, which makes sense though because that was a more normal operation, obviously.
Anthony Lynn is the run game coordinator and the running backs coach. That also means Jennifer King is out. She was a great story here for a few years. But Anthony Lynn is in. I'm very excited about that hiring. That feels like a poaching as well. I can't imagine off the way San Francisco performed this year running the ball that they wanted him to leave. So that's interesting that happened.
Well, and that's a knock on Kingsbury, is that Kingsbury, because he does run like a typical, he doesn't want you to say air raid, but you know what I mean? A lot of shotgun, a lot of spread, right?
Yeah.
The knock on Kingsbury was running out of shotgun was a little bit of a disaster for him. And that's what everyone is kind of saying. Well, you bring in that guy, he'll be able to figure out how you can run the ball a little bit better from your scheme. So
Tavita Pritchard is a holdover as well. He's the quarterback's coach. He came from Stanford last year and was in Sam's ear for most of the year. David Ray is the tight ends coach. Darnell Stapleton, assistant offensive line. Shane Taub is the offensive quality control. Joe Whitt, who you heard from earlier, is the defensive coordinator. George Banco is the quality control coach on that side of the ball. Tommy Donatel's the defensive backs coach. He was poached over his dad, and Donatel coached in the league forever. Sharif Floyd is the assistant defensive line. William Gay's the assistant defensive backs. Ryan Kerrigan's a holdover back as an assistant linebacker / pass rush specialist coach. Ken Norton Jr., I haven't even brought up yet, who was a D coordinator for a long time. Of course, worked with Dan Quinn in Seattle years ago and was a stud with the 49ers for years and years, is the linebackers coach. So, again, this is a year for Jamin Davis to kind of prove it. I don't think they're going to pick up his fifth-year option. I don't know why they would pick up his fifth-year option. So his career, at least in terms of what his future looks like in the NFL, is now. Yep. And he, like Emmanuel, and in Emmanuel Forbes' case, I would say, let's see what he is. I want to do a redo with him.
Sure.
We got different coaching staff, one that's had a lot of success with corners, so that's good news for him. I'm going to call this rookie year part 2 for him because I think it's a start over for him. For Jamin Davis, this is year 4. So I think it's a good reset for him too. But by year 4, you either get it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe he has elite athleticism. And so I'm still high on him. And with this coaching staff and what they've been able to do to generate turnovers, get guys playing fast, and now Ken Norton is his position coach, no excuses. Perform.
Right. Yep.
Perform.
Exactly. Yeah.
John Pagano, senior defensive assistant. Jason Simmons, defensive pass game coordinator. Don't be underrated by that. If somehow Joe Whitt ends up ascending out, that's someone I'd watch to ascend up. Daryl Tapp, defensive line coach, who they stole from San Francisco, played here as well.
Yep.
And Larry Izzo, who they poached from Seattle. I don't know if he was going to stay with the new staff up there, but their special teams have been top 10 for like 5 or 6 years running.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes over here, and hopefully that'll change us as well there.
That was also just such a, I don't want to say it was bad, but such a lack of a spark in special teams the last 3 years. They were pretty good the first year.
Well, I don't know why they did with DeAndre Carter what they did.
Right.
And that is one of the.
I was yelling and screaming about it that first offseason, dude, and you weren't buying in, but now I'm glad you see the light on that one.
Well, it's just you know what I've described this. I was talking to Keim about this recently. Maybe I'll have him on tomorrow after all this is all done because we didn't have him on last week. I'll ask him to come on tomorrow. But I've been describing it this way now. The more I look back and think about it, it's own goals.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just so many of them too.
Yeah.
Just so many things where you're like. You just let that happen.
Correct.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, they did this or they did that. Or no, like the DeAndre Carter thing it seems small at the time, but it's an own goal.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Not cutting Cheeseman, own goal.
Yeah.
Like cutting Hopkins, but not having a kicker, own goal. Just like these are these little, or like Tim Settle leaves, J.D. McKissick leaves. They got lucky they got him back, own goal.
Right.
Chris Harris left because they didn't know his contract was running out, own goal. Like, it's just like, it's so many of these little things where you're like, who's paying attention to this stuff?
Go down the individual offensive line pieces that they let walk. I don't mind if you're going to cut them because you don't want to pay them, but then they never replaced them.
Never replaced them. That's a little malpractice-y, which is like, they tried to pay Sheriff. I still don't know the whole story about what that was about.
Right.
He just didn't want the money. I don't know why. He just wanted to go somewhere else, and that's probably all it was. Trent, I don't blame him. I think there was just too many hard feelings. And I get it, like, the whole show up and show me when he's a Hall of Famer was a little, come on. But I get, like, I think maybe the feelings were a little too hard there to probably, circle the wagons on that one. So I'm not going to kill Rivera over that one. Because it happened before he got there. There were a lot of hard feelings. It was really ugly. Like, that was a really, really ugly situation.
But it tells you the door was
it had
at least,
nothing to do with him.
It tells you the door was at least cracked open.
The door was cracked open because they had him under contract. That's the only reason. He wasn't a free agent. He wasn't talking to him because he was a free agent. He was talking to him because he was under contract and wanted a solution. So I won't kill Rivera over that one. Other than I would have liked to have figured it out and made up and had him play here.
Yes.
But it didn't work out. Sheriff, I don't know what happened there. That one just, for whatever reason, he just didn't want to be here anymore. Eric Flowers was an own goal.
Yes, dumb.
Morgan Moses was an own goal.
Yes, that was.
It'd be one thing if like you replaced them with people that were as good as them, but they didn't.
No, they got him off the scrap heap. Like that was the most frustrating part.
Because both of them were under contract. Both of them did come and ask for more money. They didn't have to give it to him, but he kicked him out of the building.
Yes, it was so dumb.
And then didn't replace them. Right. Own goal.
Yes.
The other stuff like Norwell and Trey Turner, I wouldn't call that an own goal. I would call that bad management of the roster, that you picked guys that it was way beyond their prime.
Well,
and you had told me that they were going to be backups for you and they'd play spot. Great. Like, but as starters, it's not 2017. I get it. They were really good at one point in time. They're not anymore. And even in my own nascent view of watching film, I watched them the year before and I went, I don't know about this.
You're bugging out a little bit.
Yeah, really bugging out.
What I didn't understand either, though, was Ron's vision was really weird because, like, he let Tim Settle go to Buffalo, but then drafted Fedarian Mathis in the second round. And it was like, dude, how'd you just signed him? Then you can build up the roster a little bit. And then you did it with
it's
Quan,
not like Tim
too.
Settle was making a lot of money.
Right.
Again, own goal. Like, they just didn't get a deal done with him. I don't think he wanted to leave.
Correct, yeah.
And then they used a second-round pick on his replacement.
Which was just asinine because you already invested so much in the defensive line. It was the same thing with Quan Martin, where it was like, okay, are you drafting Cam Crow's replacement and now he can't get a snap on defense? And what are
They
we
did
doing?
it twice this year, Quan Martin and Ricky Stromberg.
Yeah,
where they drafted him, and I went, how's he going to make the team?
You're right.
Nobody has 3 pure centers. Like, how is he going to make the team? What, are you not going to have a backup tackle? Like, what do you mean? And of course, well, we transitioned him to guard. Yeah, no kidding, you did. Own goal.
No S. Sherlock.
Yeah, own goals. Like, or I got to the point where I'm like, are they cutting Larson?
Right.
Well, then
Yeah,
why'd
yeah.
they sign him?
Why they sign him? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
What
right.
are you cutting him for
Right.
then?
Who was this? I'm trying to remember. Who was the center that went to the Jets that they liked? I'm trying to remember.
They went to the Jets?
Yeah. Wasn't there?
Or the Giants? John Michael Schmitz?
No, I thought there's another center that I couldn't think of that went to the Jets. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering.
No, there were a lot of own goals along the way. Just so many of
I
them.
wouldn't even call it own goals. I would just call it ignorance. It seems like they ignored the
they
roster.
They scored on themselves. Like, it's just like, what do you, like, the DeAndre Carter one is just such a prime example of it. Like, he was making no money. Right? It wasn't like he made a lot of money.
Yep. Right.
And they let him go because they wanted to keep Dax Milne, but then they made Dax Milne be the returner, and he's not good at it.
Correct. Yes. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I'm telling you, the DeAndre Carter one's still the one that I was screaming about when it happened.
The most amazing one last summer was like the debate over whether, Kaz Allen would get the job or Dax Milne would get it. Was the bar was so low when they would say, well, we know that Dax Milne will catch the ball. And I'm like, this is professional football. Like, what do you mean? Can't they all catch the ball? How are they in the league?
It's just such a mess, man.
It'd be like saying, like, at an admissions at a prime university, well, do you know English? Yeah, well, how would I get in otherwise?
Schweitzer.
They
let Schweitzer go to the Jets. But he could play multiple positions, and they did, like, same thing. It was
I will tell you on him, in that case, I won't kill them on this one. He had a very serious concussion the year before, like the type that kept him out for a very long time, where there were, do you want to play type of conversation?
Okay.
Not that you couldn't, but do you want to? So on that one, I won't kill them either.
Right.
He also was a very good player here, especially as a swing center guard for them. But the concussion he suffered the year before he left was bad. He missed weeks over it, and there was generalized talk of, do you want to continue? It's up to you, but we're a little concerned about your long-term health. So that one I won't kill them on. But, they're all, everything. Listen, like Chase Young's not an own goal either. Like, he suffered a massive injury, and, I wish him luck in free agency and see where he ends up. But, I don't think that he was going to get a long-term deal. Montez Sweat's an interesting one. I mean, that's an interesting decision now.
Yep. Like why you didn't asset manage that at least, You
could always franchise him.
That's right. Yep. Right.
They could have done that.
Right.
They could have made the choice about it.
Right.
They could have. They could have franchised and traded.
Sure. Yeah.
They could have done that. They didn't do it. Again, I do feel like that decision was a little out of Rivera's hands, so I don't blame him for that one. I feel like that was a more collective top-down decision, and one of the few that actually happened during the season was we've decided to trade it because of the value of the trade, and I think if it was up to Rivera, actually he wouldn't have done that one, so I don't want to blame him for that one. That said, he was better in the Bears uniform than he was the Commanders uniform in a very short period of time, so that's kind of an indictment of the coaching of him here. Right. But all these other little ones are just... The more and more and more you think back on it, and I'm like, geez. I mean, maybe every team, and I'm just watching this one closely, maybe a lot of teams have this, but there were so many little ones where you go, why did you even let that happen?
There's no reason. There's no reason.
Like why did you let these things happen?
That was the most frustrating part. And it was, like I said, the DeAndre Carter one was the one where my red flag went off of, wait, that guy's making no money, and he was a block away from returning multiple return touchdowns. That was the most frustrating.
That year was that's amazing when that happens too. In the summer, I was watching him going, he's going to pop one.
Yes.
Like you could just see it. He's going to do it, and eventually he did. He could have done it 4 more times. Crowder had a few moments last year too.
Yeah, no, Crowder's actually a good replacement. When did they sign him again?
Right,
like week 4 of the week 3 of the preseason.
Correct.
Correct. No, it wasn't even that. It was week 1. Yeah. They signed him the week of week 1. And then remember it was, he might actually be put on the roster.
Uh-huh. Right.
And he stepped right in, was better than anything they had.
Mm-hmm.
So bad.
How about Cameron Cheeseman?
Oh, God, yeah.
The snaps were terrible in the spring and the summer.
They traded up to get a long snapper.
It's like, at what point?
Say it again. They traded up to get a long snapper.
What were they waiting for? But then, off of what they did with the kicker a couple years ago, who knows? You bring in another long snapper, it could be worse.
Still, but this is always Ron's problem.
It was just so amazing. Finally, he buckled the public pressure. He cut Dustin Hopkins, and he brought in a guy named Blewett. And it was like you just knew it. You're like, oh, no. And, of course, his first kick, hit his guard in the butt.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure,
you had fun calling that guy's kicks.
Oh, man. I can't wait till I call a playoff win. Oh, I can't wait. I don't know when it's happening, but I just cannot wait.
When's the last one?
Playoff win?
Yeah.
Predates me calling the games.
Yeah, 2005. 2006, sorry. 2005 season. 2006 is when it happened.
Oh, man. Now it's like Abe Polony. We had a great year in 2006.
I mean, you saw
me a long time ago.
Yeah, I know.
A playoff win. Just a win. Not go to the Super Bowl. Just a win in the playoffs. Just one.
I was a sophomore in high school. It's brutal out here, man.
When I was a sophomore in high school, we were really good.
I bet. That was awesome.
Crazy good.
Instead, I'm
crazy good.
Instead, I'm like, can't wait to get Mark Brunell back here.
We were ridiculous when I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
We could do no wrong.
My high school.
It didn't matter who played quarterback for us. It didn't matter. Think about that. It didn't matter who played quarterback for us. We won anyway.
My high school was half Redskins, half Ravens fans by that point. That was 20 years ago.
We had 5 Brock Purdy's. We just kept winning.
5 Brock Purdy's.
Everybody we had was Brock Purdy.
Sonny or Billy. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. We're winning. All right, be right back. Bram and Callow Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. A great theme song of maybe the greatest movie ever created. Certainly my favorite sports movie of all time. And one of my favorite movies of all time, at least in the top 5. This, of course, is going to fly now from Rocky, which came out in 1977. Won Best Picture, right? I believe it did.
Yeah.
I don't believe Sylvester Stallone won Best Actor, though, that year. I believe someone else did. I'd have to look it up. I always look it up when we play this song. I don't believe he did. Because I think the categories were like Taxi Driver, and there was a crazy category for Best Picture and Best Actor and all that stuff. I'll look it up. Anyway, this is from Rocky, which is 1977, in honor of Deni Avdija, who became the first Wizards Bullets player to have 43 points plus and 14 plus rebounds since Elvin Hayes did it in 1977. He did so last night in a loss against the Pelicans. And, I know 9 and 45 basketball isn't, tickling anybody's fancy these days. But the Wizards are getting better. And Deni, while this was a crazy career high night, he's been averaging over 20 points over the last week or two. So something's really clicked for him now that they've changed the coaching staff.
Exactly. By the way, Gonna Fly Now hit #1 on the Billboard chart that year. So tells you how big that song was.
See. 1977 Oscars player. Let's see if Rocky was in that one, or was it 78? Richard Pryor was the host. That must have been something. Rocky was the Best Picture that year. The most award. Let's see. Rocky won over All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, which is the famous I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, and Taxi Driver. Best Actor, though, was Peter Finch, right? Peter Finch as Howard Beale in Network. The other, included in the other nominees, Robert De Niro for Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, and Sylvester Stallone as Rocky. So he didn't win as Rocky, but the movie won. Faye Dunaway won for Best Actress. Talia Shire, who played Adrian, was also up for Best Actress. Sissy Spacek was up for Carrie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Best Supporting Actor, Jason Robards, who played Ben Bradley, the Washington Post executive in All the President's Men.
Yep.
So Rocky did not win a ton of awards, albeit it may be, in my opinion, it's the best sports movie ever created, and it might be my favorite movie of all time.
I would agree with you on that, especially, and we've talked about this before, you could put Rockies 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the top 10 of sports movies, and I don't think you're going to get an argument from a lot of people either.
What are the other great serious sports? There's a lot of silly sports movies that are great. Happy Gilmore was a great silly sports movie.
Rudy's up there as a serious movie, but even that's not my thing. Invincible was fine. It wasn't that good. I didn't
No.
think.
Any Given Sunday's good. I don't
Any
know
Given
if I would
Sunday.
describe that as like a great all-time
Remember
movie,
the
but it
Titans?
was good.
Friday
Remember
Night
the Titans
Lights.
is good. Friday Night Lights.
High
is
school.
very
So high
good.
school football movies tend to hit at the heartstrings a little
It was
bit
pretty
more.
good. Like there's silly one. Bull Durham's a great sports
Yeah.
movie, but
Yeah,
it's silly.
Yeah,
no one's
right.
going to remember it as like an all-time great movie, but as far as like kind of silly storylines, it's outstanding.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
All the
is
baseball.
terrific.
A lot of baseball.
Yeah,
movies
The
are up
Natural's
there.
very
Natural.
good too.
Yeah, of course.
Very, very good movie.
But it just doesn't. Nothing hits more than Rocky because it's serious, but
Unnecessary
also
roughness.
Well, and it's also unnecessary roughness. The longest yard. Which
Basketball.
one? Yeah, basketball. Good God, dodgeball. We throwing dodgeball in there.
Dodgeball is an all-time comedy, and I won't hear otherwise.
It's not a
It
sports
is.
movie, though.
It's an all-time comedy. I don't want to hear otherwise because it is.
It's not a sports movie.
Jason
though.
Bateman's amazing in it. Rip Torn's amazing in it. Vince Vaughn's amazing in it.
Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller's amazing in it. All-time comedy. You will not be able to tell me otherwise.
Not a
It's
sports movie,
amazing.
though.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
It's a great comedy, though. All-time great.
Who is the old guy? Patches
Yeah, Rip Torn.
Yeah, those
Patches
okay.
O'Houlihan.
Yeah, I was trying to remember his name.
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I like when they get to the casino and he tells them he got some hookers.
That's
for them.
right. Yeah.
And then he calls Peter a name because he wouldn't go with him.
That's
Lance
right.
Armstrong makes an appearance in it.
True, yep.
Pre-controversy, Lance
Pre-controversy,
Armstrong
yes,
makes
yes.
an appearance in it. It's too good. Ben Stiller's amazing. I went as Halloween as one of the Purple Cobras one year.
That's
I went
right.
as him as the Purple Cobras. It's great. Who's the guy that, who's his like handler guy? Marcel or whatever his name is. What is his name?
That I don't remember.
The guy who's with him, the huge dude who like competes with him at the gym, but he's kind of like his bodyguard.
I don't remember.
Chuck Norris makes it
Chuck Norris is
incredible.
in it? Yeah, he
Chuck
does the
Norris.
thumbs up,
Yeah,
yes.
thumbs up from Chuck Norris. All right. Let's see. CBS Sports has a new mock draft playa. Here we
boy.
go. Want to see what we're getting?
that. Sure.
They've decided to get real fancy this year. They've decided each week they're gonna put in a new premise. And this week's premise is Justin Fields is traded. And they've decided Justin Fields is traded to the Patriots. That's what they've decided this week.
Okay.
Where the Bears get a 2024 third-round pick, a 2025 third-round pick that becomes a second-round pick if he were to take a certain amount of snaps. So essentially a second and a third, which is what most of the analysts think is what they would get. I don't think it's out of the realm that a low first-round pick for a team that needs a quarterback would consider it, but we'll see. But that's what they did. So off of that, because they traded Justin Fields, they do have the Bears taking Caleb Williams at number 1. Sad face for me over here if that were to work out that way.
Right.
And at number 2, they've got us taking Jaden Daniels, and they described it this way. Kliff Kingsbury has worked with Williams, but he should be able to tap into the skills of the dynamic Daniels too, right? And I will say this, one thing we did not talk about from the press conference earlier today, when asked what he's looking for in a quarterback, he did talk openly about the off. First, he joked, I want the Chiefs quarterback.
Of course, yep.
And then he said, you've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to run. And this is why, I believe this too. In the modern NFL, yes, there are a lot of drop back quarterbacks. Joe Burrow's prime example of this. Very, very good. I think he hasn't won that much, but he's very, very good. And maybe Drake May will be too. But I'm more and more, I'm inclined to go with the off-schedule guys, which is why I really love Caleb Williams, because he does things on the field off-schedule that are not particularly coachable. There's a feel to him that's really unusual. Daniels reminds me a lot of Justin Fields, not of the size. He's tall, but he's not as thick as him. He's got to put some weight on because I think he takes too many hits. But in the same way that he is really fast. Like, he's a crazy good athlete, and he can make things happen with his legs. So I get why, and that's why I think Washington at 1, or if they move up to 1 or stay at 2, that's probably, I agree with them. It's probably the direction they go, because I want a multifaceted quarterback, and Daniels or Williams, either one would make me happy. I'm just partial to Caleb Williams if we can get him.
Yeah. This is also not the only draft. Field Yates released his first one yesterday.
What did he say?
He also
Jaden
said
Daniels?
Jaden Daniels as well.
I've
So-
seen a little bit of momentum towards Jaden Daniels might be the number 1 pick. I don't think that will happen, and I'll tell you why. If the Bears did it, I think their fans would be like, you replaced Fields with a facsimile of Fields?
That's true. Yeah. I mean,
You think he's that much better than Justin Fields, and then he better be. And then if they do that and Washington gets Caleb Williams and Caleb Williams turns into a superstar, they look like the idiots of all idiots.
Yeah,
really.
I think
even if Daniels has a good career, they look like the idiots of all idiots.
Off of this is why the Bears are trying to goad someone in a trade right now, because they're trying to get somebody to trade before all the combine stuff actually settles out. Because the other thing that Field actually that I liked, he was on with I saw his interview with Golick and Golick Jr. their show on DraftKings. He said to them, Daniels is actually a little bit more Burrow-esque here. Like, he's constantly been moving up the rankings, and especially the last month or two where it's like Burrow. Remember, Burrow was a rocket ship. We didn't see it coming, and then all of a sudden it was like, he's the slam dunk number 1 overall pick, and we were kind of like, okay, I guess he is. Where Williams was the pre-anointed.
That might end up being the best college team ever.
Yeah,
LSU
you're right.
team
Exactly. 100%.
If you go look at what he was playing with.
Yes. Yeah.
But, I mean, obviously, in his own right, he was great.
Of course. Yeah.
Go
absolutely.
look at his receivers.
Yeah, 100%. And so what he was kind of getting at, though, is why he thinks he's the second best overall quarterback is basically because of that. It's that he basically got this way. It wasn't pre-anointed, kind of like Caleb Williams was. It wasn't taking away from Williams, but it was that he knew he had to work on some things and show the athleticism, and he did that, and all of a sudden here he is sitting at 2, essentially.
So, I've started watching a lot of tape on both Williams and Daniels because that's what I think they're going to do. I clearly am going to have to watch Drake May, too, because you never know.
Yep, right.
And this is what I would say about him at this point. The thing that concerns me is he takes too many hits. It reminds me of RG3. He is tall. He's 6'4", so he's not a small guy. But he's only listed at 210, and they often inflate the listings. He might be 6'4", 200. That's thin.
Right.
Like, that's really thin. So he's going to have to either put on a little bit of weight to not affect his speed, obviously, but put on a little bit of weight to last. Because even good quarterbacks get sacked a lot. Go ask Justin Fields about that.
Yep.
So he's going to have to be able to take a little bit of a punishment. But what scares me is when he does run, he has these instincts to try to outrun everybody. He takes sometimes almost cartoonish-like hits. And I don't like that because in the NFL, you're going to learn the hard way. And the hard way is you miss time and then we lose.
Right.
So I don't want to have that happen. But what I do really like about him, and I've seen some other people talk about this, and everyone sees these highlights of him running. And it looks like Justin Fields or Lamar. I mean, he's just fast and he's running by people and he can flip the field with his legs, which is amazing. But he does stay in the pocket, and he actually is quite accurate.
Fields said that he loved him pushing the ball down the field.
Yes, he actually is quite accurate. So that part's good. That's what's different than Fields coming out. Fields is a huge athlete. He's big, and he can run, but he was not particularly accurate, and you've seen that. Now, I still think like there's a possibility he's going to get better, and they haven't really tapped into how good he could be. So if he ends up going somewhere else, especially if it's a really stable place like Pittsburgh or something like that, watch out. Like, I think he could take off and be really good. In fact, if he ended up here, I would buy into, all right, not that I think we're doing that, but I would be open to Kingsbury will turn him around too.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson will turn him around. Like, he'll be really good here. I don't think that's an outcome here, but because we're picking second. If we were picking lower than that, I would be interested in that. But Jaden Daniels, he's very accurate, and that's a very good sign too. So to really translate into the NFL, you have to be able to throw.
Yep, right.
You do.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to throw. And this is what I like about Caleb. He's not as fast or as dynamic that way like Daniels is, but his ability to go off schedule and make almost ridiculous Mahomesy-like. That's why people compare him to him. Mahomesy-like throws. I don't think you could teach that. I think he's got a feel that is just very, very, very unusual. Daniels, I don't see that yet, but I do like that from the pocket, he's very accurate from there. And so I'm high on him too. Like, I hate saying like we're fine either way. I don't feel that way. I always feel like you should go try to get your guy. But our guy might be unavailable. Right. And if that's the case, I'm willing to take a shot here and go, you know what? Like, this guy might be a very high-end player as well.
Not only that, I've told you I prefer to just sit at 2 and not trade up to get Williams. But what I do like about Jaden is it sounds like these coaches are going to actually put him in the best position to win in terms of collaboration, what they think he's going to do best. They're going to have him do that and do what he does best and actually try to, actually round out the offense around him. Like, look at what was so wrong with Fields in Chicago. They got a new offensive coordinator, and they made the same freaking mistake in the first half of the season where they weren't using him and utilizing him rushing the ball. And it was like, you can still use him as a passer, But when you rush with him, it opens up everything else. And once again, it was the same exact story. It took him half a season to start using him again like that. And so I would just say it feels like this coaching staff would do the right thing and not try to have him be a traditional passer right away. So I've turned the corner on him. Like, I'm fine if they draft him at number 2.
Well, so am I. I mean, and Kingsbury, him saying, it was the one thing he said that was newsworthy, where he said, we are looking for someone who can move.
Yep.
And I went, well, that's not Drake May.
That's right.
That's these guys.
Yep.
Like
Correct.
that's these guys,
Yep.
and they are sitting at number 2. As for this mock draft, because they had New England trade for Fields, they have them taking Marvin Harrison, so they'd have Fields and Marvin Harrison walk into New England. That's pretty good outcome.
That's pretty nuts, actually.
That's a pretty good outcome. So that means Drake May falls, and they've got Drake May in this mock draft going to the Giants.
Oh, wow. All right.
And sitting 1 year behind Dimes.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And then basically telling Dimes you're going to be moved after this year.
Yeah.
See you after that.